Welcome back to the show today. Our guest, Brad Hawkins, has built a career around protecting people and organizations in an increasingly digital world. As CEO of SaferNet, Brad is on a mission to make enterprise-level cybersecurity simple, affordable, and accessible for the small business. Beyond technology, he has an entrepreneur, author, speaker, and host of the Digital Desperados Podcast. Brad, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you today.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it, Josh. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Some people in their careers look at the changing technology and artificial intelligence, and there's a lot of fear that's out there. Do you feel that it's got its good and its bads? What are your thoughts?
I actually addressed that a little bit in one of my books called God, the Devil, and the Internet. And from
Mm.
my perspective, there's absolutely nothing to fear other than not paying attention. And so in my mind, everything is always changing. We need to be paying attention to everything going on. I have a grandparent that just recently passed away. And one of the hardest things in the world to me was teaching her how to use an iPhone. And I bought her an iPhone, spent forever trying to educate her, but she went from no cell phone to an iPhone because she never felt like it was necessary. And I look at that saying, well, gosh, how easy would it have been if she would have just stepped step by step through the technology and got the phone when it was time and learned as we went. And so I look at that with AI is that, you know what, we need to stay on top of it. We need to be aware of it. We can't be afraid of it because we won't step into the AI world. And if we don't step into the AI world just in a couple of years, we won't recognize what in the world is happening. And so we need to move in that area. I have a few different businesses. I announced a new AI initiative into another business that I've got just yesterday in a meeting and explaining how we were going to start doing something else new with AI. And one of my employees just panicked, just absolutely panicked, said, I never wanted to get into AI. I don't know if I can put that into my job. And I just told her, I said, the reality is that we're going to do this and that's what your job is going to require. And it's going to be something that you will greatly appreciate as you learn it. Just set down the fear and let's go. And so she's working on it today and we'll see how it goes. But I don't think the only thing that I think that we can be afraid of is not joining and seeing what the world looks like in a short time.
Yeah, no, that's a really good answer. One thing I fear is the China effect. They're talking about we spent a lot of money on AI, data centers, strategic plans have changed for companies. They're not going to recoup a lot of this money. It's almost like the dot-com bust, if you remember that time period. And I think the Chinese are going to come on the market with a real cheap AI platform. It's the same way as you get a Toyota versus a really expensive Ford type concept. And it's going to crash the market in AI. And there's several people starting to say that, where this
Yeah.
hype is going to come back to where it needs to be. Same thing at SpaceX. Look where SpaceX valuation skyrocketed and then it came back down to earth pretty fast. And so forth. So I definitely think there's going to be a backlash to AI, like with the data centers. I at first had no idea it took that much fresh water to run these data centers and that it would affect the ability for us to drink in the population. So it is one of the most challenging time periods of our life. So it's going to be fascinating to see how it works out.
Well, and that's kind of the way it happens with technology all the time, right? I mean, we go and we attack a brand new technology, we throw a bunch of money to it, and to be honest with you, you look at it, usually the first people in are the ones that get way ahead of themselves, and
Yeah.
they end up oftentimes losing a lot of money, and because they get positioned and a little bit excited about things. When you sit back and you watch what's happening and you're aware of it, for example, the Chinese effect, absolutely, that's going to happen. But they've done that 100 times as you look back into history and see what other
Mhm.
technologies we stepped out, built something amazing, and then they came in with a less expensive version. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That will happen, and I do think you hit the nail on the head with the water thing. The water is a massive concern, but that is, I mean, we have the same thing with with issues with battery power and solar. And so we just have to keep moving forward in the technology to find how we solve
Mm.
these major problems.
So would it be Elon's Musk of putting these AI centers in orbit not sound so crazy?
I know that that's something he's working on, and I don't think it sounds that crazy. I have not a clue how they're going to manage the movement of technology that quickly, but they keep moving forward in it. So, but you're right, it has to get the water issue has to get resolved because we won't be able to survive if we are limiting our ability to have drinking water.
Oh, it's going to be us killing the machines for water. I'm telling
Yeah.
you.
Or
Before you know it, the robots are taking over. Like I see MMA fighting now with robots. They're in the ring beating each other up. And so it's a brave and interesting new world. I think
yeah.
from a cybersecurity perspective, it provides so many different dimensions of problems and risks as well. Like I had several people want to embrace AI, but not think of it of what are the ramifications? What do I want to put them in these processing systems? Like my whole thing is what happens when these AI systems go offline and they're not there anymore? 5 years from now, nobody knows how to do that anymore. So they couldn't do it manually. And then all of a sudden the computer did it. Now you have to recreate something manually. I don't know. It just seems like we're moving pretty fast, but I embrace it kind of at my age because when I do different things, whether it's cybersecurity work or I'm putting scopes of work together or doing penetration testing, whatever it is, these tools help me get such mundane things done that took 80% of my time, but brought 0% of value to the delivery, but you had to do it anyway, whether it's QAing and the writing and the pieces and parts and keeping track of things, where now the proficiency just goes up tremendously. And I definitely think that's the wave of the future. It's the AI assistants, you know?
I think you're exactly right, and going back to what's gonna happen when AI opportunities go offline, I mean, we've done that to ourselves many times when we've moved our entire world into managing electricity,
Right.
and when the electricity shuts down, our entire world shuts down. Recently, I was home for the weekend, which doesn't happen all the time, but I realized, we just lost our internet, and everything in my house shuts down.
Yeah,
I you can't watch TV, you can't use your phone, you can't use I mean, everything operates off of the internet now. And so it's we keep narrowing our pathway to simplicity, if that makes any sense. And we're always putting it into living our life very heavily involved in whatever that technology is. We just have to make sure that as we continue to move forward, we have a little bit of a balance. I live in an area where the wind blows too hard, you lose the electricity. I put a all house generator in to solve that problem. Now I've got a normal everyday internet and I've got satellite internet to back me up. And so it's just
fantastic.
one of those things as we go, we have to continue to go through these processes of creating redundancy to be able to make things operate.
No, absolutely. I have Starlink and I have the cable modem and high speed over here, but right now the weather's pretty bad and the Starlink's giving me trouble. And so I have to switch over to and the Starlink usually has the highest bandwidth for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so tell me this. I mean, a lot of different cybersecurity problems in areas out there. And usually somebody starts a company like I did because there's something that drives them, some problem they're trying to solve. But what problem bothered you enough that you decided to build SaferNet?
All my career, I've built small companies, and I've been an entrepreneur. I have built and liquidated so many companies, sometimes I forget 'em. It's just one of those things I absolutely love. It's so much fun. But what I realized is I didn't know a lot about cybersecurity. I kept having to rely on people and they kept telling me, well, you need to do this and this, but you can't do this unless you have an enterprise level. And then all of a sudden now it's super expensive and I can't even afford it because I got a fairly new company and just this kept snowballing on me and I would have conversations with other small business people saying, what do you do for cybersecurity? And they're like, I don't do anything because I don't even understand it. I don't know why. I've got an IT person that can set up my computers and they keep telling me I have to get, uh, you know, virus protection. And then they feel like they've got the proper cybersecurity because they have virus protection. And I'm looking at all these different things that most small businesses literally have no idea what's going on. And when you ask somebody, they say, well, we're so small, nobody cares about us. Nobody pays attention to us. Nobody's going to want to hack us. And everything that I heard was just incorrect. And so, at least based on what my research was. And so I look at that saying, I don't see anybody working in this arena. It's a wide open market to create a simple cybersecurity solution for small business. And so what we did is I sat down with some developers I've used for other projects and I said, here's what I envision. I want to create the simplest cybersecurity solution to make it so that number one, small businesses can afford it. And number two, once we get it in, they don't even have to think about it. All they want to do is be able to run it and make it as simple as we possibly can. And not saying that I have any intelligence that brought it to the table. All I did is kept asking questions. Well, why won't that work? And they keep saying, well, maybe we could do it this way. Maybe we could do it this way. And we just kept digging in deeper. And we built just an absolutely incredibly simple and powerful cybersecurity solution for small businesses. That's what we did. And it's really a lot of fun to see that solution protecting so many small businesses.
That's great. That's great that it's passionate. And, I like entrepreneurs, especially serial entrepreneurs, because they serially get really good at solving problems and how to solve problems and finding niches and not wasting time trying to develop something that really doesn't have too much legs and people are doing it wrong in the first place. And so I always love talk to them because there's all kind of war stories that you could tell, right? A lot of people ask about what are these intrusion stories and so forth. And I would love for them to be really fancy and awesome stories, but some of they're just basic. They don't have MFA turned on. The Fortinet firewall gets hit. It's blocking and tackling for some of these companies that, in fact, in many ways, it's embarrassing. I can't believe you don't have EDR on the desktop. You don't really even have antivirus on your desktops. You have 200 of them. There's this level of responsibility that you should have when you're operating a company, you would think. But yeah, the destruction as well. Some of these companies, how much revenue gets impacted and how much they're not able to move forward because of these cyber attacks and ransomwares. It gets to really be a problem or a scourge on business that they kind of start to say it's just the cost of doing business, but they pass it on to everybody else, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's kind of
exactly.
that seems to
Well,
be the
and
world we live.
it's part of business. I mean, everything that a business has to pay, they're going to have to pass it on.
Mm,
They've got to be able to run their margins, and so therefore, everybody that buys their product is also paying for their cybersecurity and paying for their lack of cybersecurity if they don't have it. And so,
mm.
at least our objective is to get it to the place where that cost is under control from an owner of a cybersecurity company to the owner of a small business that needs to protect themselves, that then that smaller portion goes all the way through the entire chain back to the consumer. And so when when we're able to build something that is a reasonable cost for the product that it offers, everybody wins. And that's part of that whole economic world that we live in, is everything is connected.
Yeah, and, I see it in the supply chain as well. I mean, when you start to buy software now, products, I mean, what are the questions you're asking about these AI models? What is the security of some of these AI models? We had a breach, not too long ago where Copilot was part of it. Somebody asked who was getting laid off, and it told it, had the spreadsheet, had the names, the social security numbers. It was really interesting because you look at it, it should be harder to social engineer an agent than it is a human. But in many ways, it's much easier to trick an agent than it is a human, right? We have this sixth sense that agents don't have. And so how do you instill that? How do you put guardrails around that? How do you protect that? how do you use these systems in the right manner and not in some of the wrong manner? But it seems to be a challenge moving forward. And then you hear all this stuff about quantum encryption and how that's going to change things, and you have to be locked down from a quantum perspective. It just seems technology is moving so fast. I hear a lot of my clients say the same thing. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where you start with all this. And like what you were saying, that basic hygiene and those outcomes, and saying, just having make sure your infrastructure is patched, it's configured properly. It can handle the stresses of the internet and computing and running your business, and not fall apart and heal over just because of something basic that you missed. I think too many companies think they could go without expertise, like real cybersecurity expertise. I'm just going to call these IT guys and they're going to install this AV. And they really have no understanding that an IT guy and a cybersecurity guy are two different people. Now, the best cybersecurity people were IT people. They come up through IT, you get your Microsoft MCSE, you get your Cisco CCNA, your hands-on Cisco infrastructure and network infrastructure, so forth. And then you transition to like incident response, security engineering, and so forth. But this generation now, it's everybody goes right into forensics or incident response, and they have no context of IT systems much bigger than them, replication and VMESX and vMotion things. They don't understand those concepts because they don't teach that in forensics. That's in IT. And I think we're losing. You ever heard that statement? The losing the dogfighting capabilities because of missiles. Like we lost we got lazy firing missiles from miles away, and the Top Gun pilots lost their ability to kind of dogfight
Yeah.
and so forth. And I think we're losing that on the incident responder. They're not coming from IT anymore. They're coming straight from college, or that background straight into cybersecurity wasn't a prerequisite to know IT in the first place. And it's impacting it. So I definitely think having where you're an incident commander and you're able to say, hey, now we should shut this segment down or do this or send that. That's really what the future is. It's how do you make these big impactful executive decisions in the heat of the moment on behalf of your customer. And it has full context of the business and IT and cybersecurity in kind of one picture, I think that's
You
kind of
know,
what customers want.
you made a very interesting comment when you said, that, "Gosh, there's a lot of businesses out there saying, gosh, I hired an IT guy and assumed they got somebody that understood cybersecurity." And what our experience has been is there's a lot of IT guys that actually hurt your cybersecurity
Yeah.
because they don't understand. They get in there, starting to do some work, doing whatever it is that you've hired them to do, and they don't they don't follow through with the cybersecurity portion after they're done. They don't make sure that they've closed the ports that they've opened, and the simple things that most people in cybersecurity understand, that those are the things that have to be fixed and repaired and maintained, as opposed to somebody that just goes in there and does whatever they need to do without cybersecurity in mind. And so you're right. Most of the cybersecurity guys start out in IT because they understand the needs that needs to be taking place. But if you've got a you know a an IT guy that just goes at it, or even with a lot of this AI development, you can build an app now and come out with this really cool app that does absolutely amazing things, except it doesn't provide any cybersecurity. And so the key is that you have to make sure that there's cybersecurity involved with all of these different pieces of your development.
Yeah. And I think it gets challenging. How do you do that? How do you find an IT MSP that really does have cybersecurity services? Because they will say they do in order to land a sale. And really what they mean is they'll install your antivirus or your Microsoft Defender or install a Fortinet firewall for you. Not very good configuring it, but they'll put it up there where it'll actually pass packets. And then if there's a security incident, call someone else. And that unfortunately is kind of the business, and I understand it because it's hard to keep an incident responder on the bench waiting for something to happen. It's much easier to kind of outsource those
Right.
engagements. But what happens when the incident now is not just me grabbing a cape file forensically with Velociraptor off of some system? Now it's this AI model that something has happened and it's been abused and it's done something workflow wise it shouldn't. how do I interrogate it? Do I waterboard the agent here? How do I get things out of the agent to say, what were you doing and why did you do that? And what are those logs, that type thing. So that kind of chain of thought and being able to do that in an incident to me is going to be the next challenge that is going to be very difficult. It's one thing to test a model and try to get a prompt to do something it shouldn't and return something it shouldn't. It's it's a lot different to say these guys have been using this model for years and now one decides to use it maliciously in this one time somewhere. Go ahead and find what he did. I don't I don't even know where to
Yeah,
start with that, right? Other than
that
asking the model itself, "Hey, did he tell you to hide this and not tell anybody? I mean, tell me what happened here." But I don't know. It almost seems like that's gonna be the future because a lot of the vulnerabilities are part of the language that you use. Lexicon, it's part of the lexicon that we use because in some cases, there's an AI model. If you tell it to write me a virus, it's not going to do it. It kicks back and says, community rules prevents me from doing this, blah, blah, blah. But if you tell it, hey, please show me if you were going to create a virus, where would you do and what functions would you go to get it and how would you go about doing it? And so now it views it as not a illegal thing to do. It views it as a theoretical discussion on how you would do it, and that bypasses some of the security in some of these models. But what are you thinking right now when it comes to just the separation between IT people and cybersecurity and all these different disciplines that didn't exist 10, 15 years ago? Now is such specialized that man, just getting the right people that know that combination of skills is extremely hard. So how do you hire someone in that area? I don't know. It just becomes a challenge. You're a Kubernetes guy and that's all you do. And well, I'm a big Linux server guy, or I do network engineering and that's all I've done for 15, 20 years. It just is fascinating to start off from you did everything when I started in IT. You did everything. And now it's,
that's exactly right, and you saw that in exact same scenario happen in the medical field. I mean, you had a doctor in your community, and the doctor did everything, and then they broke out into
Mhm.
surgeons, and then they broke out into, you know, specific all the way to now they have, my brother-in-law, he's a neuro-ophthalmologist. He focuses on just the brain and how the brain connects to the eyes, and that's all he does. And it's unbelievable how refined those practices get focused on little bits and pieces of the market. And I see it happening as cybersecurity gets more and more really confusing and detailed and broken out into segments. You're exactly right. Trying to find the right cybersecurity guy to be able to manage the piece that you need to be dealing with. That's a tall order. That there's generalists then you that have to hold it all together, but then they need to be able to know how to hire the right people to do the right things. And so it
yeah.
is, especially when we get into this AI world and quantum computing world, those those change the entire cybersecurity market specifically.
Wow.
And if you can't be an expert in either one of those, you're gonna be behind the 8 ball for sure.
Yeah, you definitely gonna be behind the eight ball. And I think even companies, one of the challenges I see from a cyber perspective is that they really don't sign up for these hygiene programs where you have a cybersecurity person that comes in every quarter. They do the outside scans, they do the pen tests. They have that as a program that just runs. Nine times out of 10, it's like, oh, the IT guys, oh, we haven't had a pen test in a while. I guess we ought to try one instead of having a defined governance, like when I worked at Ernst and Young and Booz Allen Hamilton, they were very big on programs, defined programs that had their own balance and weight and team assigned to it and can continuously run over the years. Because what does an executive want? They don't want a one-time project with two people that falls apart and doesn't do anything. They got tasked by their boss or the CEO. They want to make sure a governance structure is there. Somebody shows up once a month. There's a report. That program will continue to move forward whether he or she's involved or not. And I think that's where you need to get where you're doing programs for things. Your pen tests, your tabletop exercise, roll that up into a must have for the year because it's not just the tech that you have, but it's how do you respond when the things are occurring? What are the decisions that you make? And I've seen some just disastrous ones in the middle of an incident. One team wants to restore the systems. We don't even have containment of the threat actor, or do we have all the forensics information? And IT's trying to dump data in SQL databases on top of your head. So it's a real mess in these time periods. Human nature seems to really come out when companies are under tremendous stress under these IRs. And there's just so much that could be avoided just by that human people process. Who can make a decision in this case? So a lot of times they say, what is the hardest thing? Is it the tech, the last of log? What is the hardest thing in these intrusions? Really, a lot of times is figuring out the client figures out who's got the power to turn that off or to change that or to lock that down. They haven't even thought about that. So I think it's important to kind of work through the people process with all your technology. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're exactly right, and I personally believe that a company should have a set protocol on when they do what, just to keep them on top of things. For example, the pen test. I mean, I, it is a very I wouldn't call it simple, but very important to be able to just put it in there. I know companies that do it once a quarter, and when you're being that overtly paying attention to what it is that's going on, you can be on top of a lot of those things. It's when you start allowing the infrastructure to start failing and you're not paying attention to it, that's when you have to bring in all the experts to be able to find how bad did this get. But if you're doing your normal analysis, you're doing your normal testing, you at least know what your problems are, and you don't have an emergency as quick uh, as those that don't pay attention. But you're right, trying to hang on to those experts that are focused on those correct things. It's interesting to see how, I talk to these people right out of school, and they've got some good knowledge, but they don't know the older technology. They know what's coming. They don't necessarily know how to deal with the things of today. And it's interesting trying to keep up with all the twists and turns. And so even the generational thing is going to be an interesting process for keeping track of the new version of AI and quantum computing, let alone the step.
Hey, so do you think it's gonna be us getting senior citizen classes on holograms or whatever the next thing is? And, like, we make fun of that they can't learn an iPhone, but here they're gonna make fun of us going, "Look, grandpa can't even get hologramming and sliding right," or whatever is gonna be the new technology, you know? I just can imagine.
I'm sure I'm sure that's gonna happen just like we have these old conversations of these guys don't even know if you put a rotary phone in front of them, they wouldn't even know how to dial that. They're gonna be doing that to us, so.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my kids have no idea what it's like to take a telephone with a 20-foot cable and run into the bathroom so you can have a private conversation because you didn't have cell phones back then, you know?
Exactly,
Mm.
exactly.
So it's always interesting how that has the bridges into technology. Like, I didn't even think you could log on to corporate systems with your Facebook account now. Well, your Google account. Now it's TikTok's next. And so just moving authenticators into social just seems to be a disaster. But
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I do think authentication is where all the threats are happening right now, everything, you know?
Well, and the truth is that most people don't even understand what it is that they're authenticating to or from. I mean, they're just trying to get through the process, and they're not paying attention when they set up, they go ahead and attach Facebook to their authenticator. All they care about is getting to what they're trying to start or what they're trying to create. They don't have a plan. They don't have a strategy. Most businesses that I talk to have no idea what their employees are doing in regards to that. Not a clue. They're just letting them set up whatever they set up in the process. Then you got the larger companies that don't let you do anything at all without going through IT, and that slows down the entire business. And so you've got this balance that needs to be figured out, and that's where these small and medium-sized companies, they don't have any big picture thought to what they're trying to do, and that's part of that protocol they have to put together.
And I think they all want to. They all want to get there. It's just how to do it and where and where's the front door and how is best to get there. At the same time, you look at these young guys coming into cybersecurity. I got a lot of people reaching out. How do I get into cybersecurity with advent of AI and these new technologies? What should I be studying? This seems like, just threw everything upside down. And I do think like log parsing. I'm pulling logs from multiple systems. The hardest thing used to be of using Python and piping things out and moving them together and getting a picture together from the data. You almost had to be a data analyst just to get some of these files and all these outputs of these tools together. Having AI models where you can do the parsing and you can do the data matching really quick and you can worry about the analysis. I can say how many times does this IP address show up and how many times does it send SMB traffic outbound? And I can ask these questions, build out the query and get the data results versus writing a SQL query, writing some Python and trying to have to worry about all that. It's more of how do I know what's going on and how can I make a decision about that? So I think that's really a helpful thing. I'll give you an example. Tying MCP, the model context protocol, and tying that to the back of like a pen testing vulnerability scanner, where
Mm,
you don't have to worry about different formats of reports on the back end. The model will handle all that and can give you a solidated method. Us cybersecurity guys would love that because it allows us to stay on target finding the enemy, going through data versus doing 80% innocuous, just trying to put the data together into something that's readable that we can search and make sense. And
yeah. Well, and and to be able to make it simple enough that the people that are getting the reports and getting aware of what's going on, that they will be able to comprehend it, and then to your point, make the right decisions. And so, but eh, getting the reports and the data and the information and understanding what to do with it are two large differences. And so you can have an expert at cybersecurity, but if there's not the proper protocol on what to do with that information, it ends up bringing somebody like you into the mix that's going to have to go in there and take care of a massive incident that they knew was happening, but they didn't know what to do about it. And so that's
yeah,
part of that bigger issue that comes in, is that you've got these highly advanced cybersecurity solutions without the next step of the protocol involved with it. And so you know exactly what the issues are. I mean, you've been in this business long enough to see all the areas that need to be looked at and dealt with, because that's what you end up having to do, is solve large incidents that need to be dealt with. But a lot of those, you could have known that it's coming. You knew that several of these things would be coming, because they just simply wouldn't make the right choice in the front end. And that's really where we come in, is to say, let's do some of this basic parameters, set up some real basic things to make sure that there's proper cybersecurity in place before larger incidents happen, and then we're able to go in there and solve, or at least keep more things away. So for example, in our product SaferNet, if you've got somebody that clicks on a link, everybody knows you're not supposed to click on links that you don't know what they are. You get trained, you get educated, and the proper cybersecurity protocol is to teach these things, but it happens every single day. And we will stop any access to any outside links because we know that that's what happens. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't turn us off and go do what they were going to do anyway, but we will at least make it more difficult to make that happen. And so it's that bridge between the basics and then what you do, the incident responses to those people that bypass the simple solutions that are in the middle. So, but it's really kind of an interesting thing, this whole cybersecurity thing, because you've got these bad guys. And we talk about it in our podcast, Digital Desperados, that talk about the history of these incredibly successful hackers. And they're just a lot of times young kids wanting to get a name for themselves, or they find a simple way to be able to make a lot of money doing very simple things, where the proper protocols would stop them, but the average business doesn't do anything to stop them. And that's what our job is to step in there and make it more difficult for small businesses to bypass the simple protocols to make it so that you're less busy in your incident response issues. Because at that point, we at least stop the people that want to be stopped.
Yeah, and I think the prevention is key to a lot of that. Environments that we have to do remediation, post remediation is a huge haul. Most of the time they didn't have anything in place. The response would have been much more cost effective, would have been smaller, the impact would have been less if you kept up with it. It's almost the same way as you have this cavity in one of your teeth and you just put it off. And then all of a sudden it gets bad and you got an infection and now you're in real trouble. And that's sort of the same thing with your cyber hygiene. You can not replace equipment that are end of life and they're not being patched anymore, thinking you're going to save a few bucks, and you don't have the foresight to think what is in the future. And then some people, I don't blame them because they really don't have the foresight whatsoever for it. But I remember in business school, they were talking about the plant manager who comes in to an assembly line that the last manager spent nothing on maintenance, put nothing in any of the conveyor belts, didn't put anything, any preventive maintenance, saved all that money, profits went through the roof, expenses were down, great. He leaves 3, 4 years into this, new manager comes in, everything's broken, everything's falling apart. He has to increase expenses to fix all that, profit goes down. Which manager looks like the better manager? The other guy said,
The
"I had a
first one.
great business that was going great, and we were doing wonderful, and I handed it to you." And then all of a sudden, expenses go through the roof, and he run into the ground.
That happens all the time. You know exactly. But the objective would be is to say to do it in the upfront way to say, I'm going to do a little bit at a time to make this successful. And you don't know what is coming. You have no idea. For example, nobody knew ransomware existed until the first time that, when a municipality got shut down. Nobody could believe that that would actually happen, but it happens all the time.
Right.
Our tool is a very simple approach, but we silo every single endpoint device. We put them into their own siloed and VPN. We put virus protection inside of that, and we make it go directly to the cloud, and it communicates through the cloud so that if somebody opens a ransomware link, it's not going to spread throughout the network. It's going to get siloed into that one device. So that one device might get trashed. And at that point, you really say, who cares? Because you saved your entire network by having a $1.99 VPN connected to your endpoint device so that it doesn't spread throughout your entire network. Well, a lot of times people will say, well, I'll put that on the devices that go outside the office, but I'm not going to care about the ones inside the office because we have a firewall. Well, that's great unless you have a ransomware attack. And at that point, you still get it to spread throughout your entire network if you don't silo each computer or each endpoint device. And so that's just one of those simple little things that we do to be able to say, how do we make it so that we can foil the outside hacker trying to come in and figure out a way to destroy a business, steal money, whatever it is they're trying to do? Well, here's one that you can do at a very simple level. But your overall incidents response, you're the one that sees it on the other end of that, saying, okay, how do I solve for this ransomware that has just come in and shut this entire company down? Now I've got to go in there and figure it all out. Well, that's because
Yeah.
people weren't using what it is that they needed to in the beginning.
Yeah. It's the number one control for ransomware to prevent ransomware. The number one control, immutable backups. Your
Mm.
ability just to be able to restore your data and do it. And here's the thing I've noticed in multiple incidents now, they don't even have the hardware to restore it to. Like if we need to take this hardware or these systems, take them offline, forensically look at them. All right, restore the system, get it back up and running. On what hardware? They didn't account for the actual restore. Like they thought about the backups because that's easy. You just back this up to here and you had the schedule. Nobody really thought about restoring the whole system and what would happen and what you need to do. That solves so many ransomware problems because you have your data back. You may still have to deal with the threat actor because they're going to leak it and you're still getting blackmailed, so to speak, for that portion of it, but you're not down. You're the operational side. You can still process. I mean, you're an entrepreneur here. There's a lot of companies that if they get hit in that small stage where they're not really mature and they don't survive it. You might have had a great idea in a startup, and you know investors put a lot of money into it and so forth, but you just let it expose. You didn't think about security. You didn't think that was important. And then the whole thing gets trashed and then goes out. How often does that happen that you noticed?
You know, honestly, we don't come across those experiences because we're not on that end of the cybersecurity. In our clients, we don't see it at all, because we have different types of issues. So what we do is we go in there and we make sure that every device is singularly protected and not let it spread throughout the network. And so we do have incidents of an attack on a company, but usually what'll happen is that they will shut down that one device that gets attacked, and our recommendation to them is that you just don't even fire that computer back up again or fire that wherever it came in from, and it's shut down. And so, yeah, we don't see it a lot, but I know it happens all the time because being in this industry, we hear about those incidents all the time, and that's usually when they're asking us to come in after everything has been destroyed. They're starting all over again. They want to make sure that they're not going to be subject to that type of attack again.
Yeah, I can definitely see where that needs to be handled from a business perspective, not just from an IT perspective. But yeah, just like you have your insurance, you should have your cybersecurity people, you should have your IT management, and everything's fractional nowadays. Anyway, you can have a fractional CEO, fractional CFO, fractional security officer. So
Yeah.
there's really no excuse really to why not you would have some of that expertise and get it ahead of time. Yeah, I could tell you the next 5 years is going to be really interesting. When I kind of
Mhm.
spun out on my own about a year ago, started Dark Stack 7, I found before that, before really having the AI tools, everything was so much slower. Working for these private equity kind of cybersecurity companies, because we had to get a marketing one pager. And that took 5 weeks with the marketing agency that we had to go for branding and approval. 5 weeks. And it sucked. It was horrible. Yet I'm able to do it in Claude and able to do it in like 2, 3 minutes, change a few things, edit a few things here and there. What does that do to the rest of the market? I mean, from a business velocity perspective, it's been tremendous for me. I'm able to get go to market material quickly. I'm able to update my website using Lovable. So that's all AI driven. And it's the first time I build a website without hacking up HTML, right? I got a computer science degree, so I know how to do HTML, right? And that's how, for the longest time, that's how you make websites. Nobody does that anymore. Use these AI models and your ability to say, "Hey, I want to do an Azure security assessment. Build me these pages out," and it cuts weeks off, tons of money off of some of the inefficiencies of business. I mean, what are your thoughts from the velocity? Do you see kind of the velocity increasing with AI tools and the market?
It is truly unbelievable what you can get done in today's world versus, to your
Mm.
point, 5 years ago. I mean, it, I just put out a brand new, actually, I put out three brand new websites for three different projects we have. And now I didn't do it personally. I had one of my guys do it, but it was one a day. It popped out. I was taking a look at it. The next day, another one popped out. It was taking a look at it. Now we still have to tweak it a lot, make some adjustments to it. But I mean, that was a 3 to 6 month project before that. And so, yes, it is absolutely amazing to me what they're able to come up with. Even a new logo twist to it. I mean, you can go in there and it'll give you 5 options in about 5 minutes. I mean, it's really an amazing thing to be able to get in there and do that. Now you gotta pick the right tool, right? You can't go into chat and get chat to do that because it gets all confused, but it has its different reasons for being around, but Claude just does an amazing job.
Yeah, and it's fascinating and a little scary sometimes how good it is. In different tasks. The hallucination level, at least for parsing data, is very minimal. I see from a hallucination perspective, but these models are being at this level now. Where are they going to be here kind of in the future? I
Yeah.
love it. Just the ability, like I have my own Sally legal bot run through Claude. And essentially, I just do all my contracts, my NDAs, everything through that folder project. And I run that and get artifacts from it. And what it does a lot, they send in a contract. Here's this SOW. I compare it to my standard and I say, tell me the difference and what should I really worry about? And then it comes across, tells me the difference. The only problem is I don't know if I really trust its legal. I don't trust its legal opinion. However, it's not giving me legal opinion. It's just grabbing contracts that it's seen in the past from SOWs and putting it together and comparing the two and having some kind of logic that goes along with it. I don't know. That would cost me hundreds, if not thousands of dollars going back to a lawyer all the time. So it just seems like the speed and all those low costs. I can go to LegalZoom now to get incorporated. I don't need to hire a lawyer for this. And it seems like the velocity of business is going to go quicker and faster, but it also changes the relationship. I don't know. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I think it's there. So, I mean, there's no way we're going backwards. It's there. And so I look at that saying, okay, I know that these things are going to speed things up and it's going to make things simpler and faster, but then it's also going to make it less, to your point, you don't know how accurate your legal documents are. I've brought up legal documents that I've had done in the past and
Mm,
I've compared and to what it is that an AI creates for me. And you know what? They've done a pretty good job. I don't see, as a matter of fact, I see it where sometimes they pull out things and highlight things that I didn't see in my old documents. And so I look at that saying, well, gosh, what is that going to do to the legal community? It's kind of funny. I had an attorney do something recently, and when I got it back, it had what do you call those little dashes that chat does? I forgot what the name is, but I asked him, I said, "Did you do this on AI?" And he said, "Well, I had to correct my grammar and that kind of stuff." And
yeah,
and I'm looking at it saying, "Well, gosh, if the legal community is even using it, why isn't that I'm not going to use it?" Of
yeah,
course, I'm going to step in there and start doing what it is that they would be doing. And so it is true. Everything is changing. I think there's going to be advisors that you can hire to help you coordinate your AI solutions because right
yeah,
now I know there's AI solutions being created that I have no idea about.
right,
I hear about them through friends of mine or business associates and they say, "Oh, you need to use this. It's twice as fast as this." And I think that's a new career that's going to come out is you're going to have an AI, maybe a CAI, a C level on your business. And so it's going to open up and the economy is going to change to it. The infrastructure of a business is going to change to it. We will be moving into a very advanced AI world here shortly.
mm. Now, we definitely could talk forever here, but one last question before we kind of wrap it out. To all those other future entrepreneurs who want to do what you've done, starting companies, they wanting, there's obvious this just kind of this impression that it's this world of freedom all the time. And what you hear from entrepreneurs, it's the opposite. You're working constantly and so forth till you get to a certain turn point. But what do you say to those guys out there that go, what, I'd love to do what Brad does here, but man, I don't have the money, I don't have this, I don't have that. They always you don't have something all the time. But what are your thoughts on that person who wants to be an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. There are so many people that think they want to be an entrepreneur because they look at what their boss is doing and their boss is making a ton of money off of them and most people don't really know what it actually takes to build a business.
Mm,
You know, you're the CEO, but you're also the janitor. Yeah, I mean, you do everything in the middle of everything. And so
yeah.
until you start making money, and then you can bring on people to do those things that maybe you're not good at. Yeah, I run into a lot of people that try to do it with partners, and I always laugh because usually when they pick a partner, they pick someone that's just like them. I mean, they want to they want to start an engineering business, and they've got a buddy that's an engineer, and they decide they want to go out and start an engineering business together. That's just crazy because you've got two people with the same skills. You want to find people with different skills. You want a business operation guy and an engineer to be able to make something like that work. But the most important in my mind is to make sure that you know and understand what your product is. And I have this rule of thumb, and it's called the nude model. It's got to be a novel product. Stands for nude. The N for nude is novel. It's got to be something that not everybody have, and it's got to be a creative approach to something. You got to have a, if you're going to be an engineer, you got to have a different approach to it than every other engineer to get any traction. And then it's got to be useful. The product has to be useful. The product has to be dependable. And then the last one is it's got to be economically viable. So if you've got a product that matches the nude model and you can scale those out. You've got a 1 to 10 on each one of those levels. The only difference is dependability is a 1 or a 10. It's not a you can't get a 7 in dependability. You're either dependable or you're not. But if you've got a business that you know what your product is, the next thing is you need to make sure that you understand who is going to buy your product. So if you've got a novel product, you've got a product that fits the nude model, and you have clients that you can sell to, then you can go and build a viral model. You can become very successful. If you don't have those in place, don't start it until you do.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's good advice. When I like using analogies, and of course I was in the Marine Corps, so I use military analogies here. But it was interesting where I was watching about special forces units and Delta Force, and the most elite special forces we have is Delta, and they go on these anti-terror missions. And all the time in military training, and same in the Marine Corps, you're there as a team. There's multiple people, you're motivating each other, you're going through this experience together. But when you hit the absolute elite of our special forces, which is Delta Force, Army Delta Force, when you're at the elite level, their selection process is months by yourself. You see nobody. You go hiking in the mountain you have to make 20 miles, get over here. There is nobody to sit there and force you to do it. There's nobody to give you motivation. Don't quit. It is pure psychological. You're on your own. It breaks so many people because they're used to going through a challenge. And I almost kind of feel that's what entrepreneurship is that there's nobody to tell you, wake up and take that call. There's nobody to say, go send that email right now. There's nobody to say, you got to call the accountant because the check didn't clear. Whatever it is, there's nobody to say you're not doing your job. Just the business will suffer. And so the motivation factor, I think, for entrepreneurs, like just to motivate yourself to do that and continue to grind through that means that preservation is definitely something that you learn through it. I don't know. I have admiration for going through the process because you take a lot of self-motivation to do it.
Well, you're exactly right. And as soon as you realize that there's nobody doing it for you, it's kind of funny. People say, gosh, yeah, I need to take a vacation. I hate vacations. I mean, I hate them because if it's a true vacation, that means all my work piles up on me.
Yeah.
If I take a vacation and I at least manage my emails, or I do a couple of things on the side, I can slow down my work and I'll love it. But if I just shut myself down and not do anything, when I come back from a vacation, it just piles up so much that I don't even enjoy trying to get back into that world until you get actual employees that are doing all the work for you, and then you can just sit back and make sure they're doing it. And so that's it's that beginning phase that if you're not on top of it, you're in a lot of trouble. My trouble is, personally, I've got several businesses that are in the place where I don't have to do anything. I just watch and from a distance and everything's
Mm.
good. But I'm always with a brand new business. I always start something. Every time I turn around, I see another great opportunity that I need to start a business around. And so, this one that we're working on right now, this cybersecurity company, I think it's going to be a life changing business because it's so important to do those basics that very few people do. And we've created a solution that very few people have really even thought of or paid attention to. And we have an incredible novel product that is in the process of becoming a viral business. Now it's a matter of just walking through it until I can pass off more responsibilities to the employees and see how exciting that's going to be. So
Mr. Brad Hawkins, thank you so much, sir. And where are the ways that the audience can get more in touch with you? What's your website, your LinkedIn? But how do they follow you and know more about your company?
yeah, they can go to LinkedIn. Brad Hawkins on LinkedIn. You've got SaferNet, VPN.com, and a new company that we're integrating SaferNet into is called InfiniteProtection.ai. And so, yes, we have AI running the whole operation, and not the whole one, but most of it. And it's pretty exciting to be able to see how we can keep technology safe. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Until all AI decides to join a union and decides to all charge us more for their services. So that's all cheap. Right. So, everybody, thanks for tuning in and listening. Of course, follow us on the Cybersecurity America podcast. Hit that like and that subscribe, share it out. We really appreciate your support. We look forward to those comments, and everybody stay secure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Cybersecurity America.